Blazer fans, welcome back to BVB. Your hosts, John Duncan, Darion Smith, and Jimmy Marion. Guys, I, we need to talk about hiring an athletic director.
Did you see that coming on a what's the day, Darian? Wednesday? Did you see that coming on a Tuesday?
Just a random Tuesday when you getting ready to get off of work,
Mm-hmm.
and then it's like, bam, like what are we doing, John? What's going on, man?
Mark Ingram officially let go.
Jimmy. I mean, like, where do we even start with this? I know we first of all, in the words, not in the words, but for my boy Big Jim, what they he always push everybody to like and subscribe before we get into like wherever we got to do that at. Let's like and subscribe. Give us a comment on this and let us know what you think. I don't want to spend too much time on it, so I just want to get straight into it. I
Can
know
I
we
tell
have.
you a funny story before we go into the serious topic? Was I forgot what y'all know Big Jim's always out there selling the brand, the Blazer Victory podcast. Apologies, Big Jim. I can't remember where you were, if it was CVS or wherever, but he was telling me a story like in the last few days that he was talking to someone that had worked there, and young lady played. Let me back up. Young lady, I think, ran track or cross country for like UAB. And he just got in a conversation with her after she had said "Go Blazers" to his shirt or something like that, and he's there in line at the Walgreens or the CVS or wherever he is, and he's getting her to, hey, you need to go do this, that, and the other. And Big Jim's trying to get guest appearances on the show without even running it by us, so he's just excited.
Oh, I love
Need to
it.
make him an official producer. Yeah.
That's right.
But shout out to Big Jim, unofficial producer, right? Um, but yeah, Jimmy, we got some news, man, about Mark Ingram being let go. Um, it's kind of hard to even kind of where do we start with this because I know we have so many angles that we can take it. Because we actually know Mark personally, and we have been, a part of this program in our own ways, whether it's students or players or just fans. We know him professionally from our perspective, right? And we know some inner workings about the people around the program. We know how certain people, former and current, could feel about him, right? So we want to just flesh this out, and then we can also get into what are we looking for in the next AD. I don't. I think that's a very important segment, like some of the qualities that we'll look for. John, you got something?
uh, on the Patreon, Jimmy did the great article on the Patreon. If you so um inclined to give $5 a month, check it out.
Hey, and John and Darren probably don't even know this yet, but I actually did unlock it for free access for this particular article. So, for anyone listening that just maybe wants to get like a sneak peek at some of the stuff that we've been rolling out here recently on the Patreon, check the article out. It's called Jimmy's Notebook. I like Mark Ingram. I still think UAB needed a change. You can go to my account on X, UAB Athletics account, or excuse me, UAB Athletics fan, or John Blazerpod at Blazerpod.
Yes.
I know I got that wrong in a post the other day on X as well, so you can get the link to that article. But yeah, there's a lot of different directions that we could take this to.
Honestly, right where you were at, I was about to say that was a perfect segue. You said that you like Mark personally, but you felt like we needed a change. If you could just we can just use that as an entry point and then go from there.
Yeah. Uh, so we might have some new listeners, for this episode. So we won't rehash out the whole story. We'll give you, bits and pieces, if you will. But when you think about those two statements. I like Mark Ingram. I still think that UAB needed a change. What I mean by I like Mark Ingram is, first and foremost, I understand everybody's got their personal opinions, as do I, on their personal interactions with whomever. And just from my perspective, my conversations with Mark Ingram started out with me essentially emailing him and saying, "Hey, I'm not happy with your decision." It was a disagreement to retain Coach Dilfer for a third year. That dates back to, I think the email I sent to him was back in December of 2024, sometime around there. And I didn't expect anything in return, but what I did receive in return was a response. It started out, I joke a little bit in the article, it came from a no caller ID, number via phone, a voicemail, and then an email, and then that connected with a longer conversation, and that conversation led to a couple of different conversations, but it was an outlet for me to express all of my concerns about his specific decision to return Trent Dilfer for a third year. I'm sure we'll get into the Trent Dilfer hire, from that perspective too. But what did that turn into? Was it turned into an opportunity for myself and John and Darion to meet with Mark Ingram as other fans were presented that similar opportunity. Everybody had an opportunity around that time to really voice their displeasure. In my experience, every time I did, I was given a response and an opportunity to expand upon, whatever I was thinking. So again, that led to conversations, and I would not call it a friendship. I wouldn't go that far. However, we were friendly, and that led to John. For those of you that do listen or don't listen, like John had experienced quite the medical challenge, and that resulted in him being rushed to the hospital. And it was myself and another fan had notified Mark. And that same day, Mark, I wasn't there. I don't know exactly what he had in his calendar that day, but he left UAB and went down the street to go see John in person, like in the hospital. And every time I talked to Mark, he inquired about John's health and his status. And, there were many things I referenced in the article about, doors open, him encouraging people to come on our pod, him coming on our pod himself, him allowing us to ask him whatever questions that we wanted to, him being transparent with us. You guys remember the day after Trent Dilfer was announced as being fired from UAB? We went out to lunch with who? With Mark. He took us out to lunch that day and he talked to us for at least probably a couple of hours, answered every question that we had about contracts and coaching search and plans and whatever, so again, I've been talking for a while, so I shut up here for a second, but like that was my experience. I'm sure y'all will share yours as well. And but at the same time, for reasons that we'll get into today, I think a lot has changed. And I think I know Mark had been at UAB for 11 years, and UAB Athletics has seen success, whether it be via fundraising, facilities, different coaching hires have worked out, but a lot has not worked out. A lot over the years, especially recently, has been negative publicity about UAB athletics. Far too much for my liking. There has been a disastrous hiring on the football front, which is the most important hire that you can make, for your legacy. And so that hire didn't work out at all. And then really it was just like the process of coaching searches gave me angst. Like it wasn't always it did happen to be who we landed with, but it was like the process, of us getting to where we were. So, and there's more. There's the softball investigation, the football, stabbing incident. Like these are things that, if you're listening for the first time, you're probably thinking, why did it take this long? You got players stabbing each other at football facilities and sexual misconduct investigations. How the heck can you say you like this person? But I think it's important just to provide some perspective that, like many other things in life, it's just not always that simple. What do you say, Darren?
Yeah, I know we was talking before we got on here, and I I was making a statement that just like any human, we operate in a gray. You know, nothing in this world is almost unless it's the colors itself, it's never black or white. It's not that simple. So we were able to like separate the man and how he treated us and how he responded to us. So the man may be different to Bill Clark. And I say that because there was clearly a personal feud going on there. They can say what they want to. Something happened that I don't know what happened. I do know it must have got extremely contentious, right? So a guy like Bill Clark, if he was being honest, probably would say something totally different. Um, but we was able to separate the man and how he treated us from his response, how we think that he did on with his responsibilities with his job. I can sit there and I can name out a bunch of things. I can also give him a credit. I can also give him this. In the beginning of his tenure, Mark was there and was the leader per se, since he was the AD. He was the leader of a lot of fundraising efforts, especially we had for certain buildings. You know, we talking about the football operations building. You know, but how many times have we seen him in that vest and that hard hat outside of Bartow? You know, he was a key figure in getting us to the American. You know, getting funding for and talking to all kind of politicians and business minds alike for the stadium that we have for Protective. I don't know how much credit. I don't know the amount of credit that he deserves for a lot of building so many different athletic buildings we needed. And that's just I'm just naming out the football, basketball. There was other buildings as well. Uh, Beach volleyball, all of these different type. And he was the head figure of that. People can sit there and quibble about how much credit a guy deserves or not. He was the AD. He was the presiding AD while all of this stuff was going on. In the meantime, he was the AD when we brought football back. Like he was so whether you like him or not, or just think he was a figurehead, he was the AD while when we won multiple championships. When it was good with Bill, it was good. So you have to give him credit for that. He was the AD when AK has had success in basketball. Again, I also believe this is kind of illustrates why it was time to move on too. And this is part of the reason. I think Mark is kind of a relic, I would say, in a sense of he's from the old regime. He's kind of old school. He believes in, we're gonna build great facilities and we're gonna bring and it's still building great facilities is still part of the equation, but we all know this era of football that we live in now. It is you gotta be forward thinking. You gotta be you gotta have a social media. I like that John posted from the Blazer Pod account on X, and he was asking people like, what do you want to see in the next AD? Name some qualities. Probably the first thing people were saying was like, man, we need some communication, and we need somebody that has a presence with the fans. And I just honestly, that wasn't our regime. It wasn't very transparent. It didn't feel transparent. I do appreciate Mark's willingness to meet with us. I'm talking about for hours. And like as Jimmy stated, answered questions, was very gracious with his time. I was like at some points I was thinking like, man, dude, you got a job to do, don't you? Like you sit here talking to us and we appreciate it. But I don't know many ADs that would have been willing to do that. Now, when I think about it, as Jimmy stated as well, was it an agenda? Was it an angle attached to it? You know it is. You're like it's all everybody has some kind of agenda, right? And I think he was looking toward us to be kind of his sometimes when you have people working on your house, you need a contractor. You like to go through a contractor to be the person to relay what you want for your house. Like, okay, I need this, and this done. And they get their workers and their subcontractors, they relay the message. We were here to relay, we were his contractors, we were his translators. He was using us kind of like, y'all spread the word for me. This is what I'm doing. I can answer you guys' questions. I can be open. I feel like he chose us. Um, Now looking back on that, a part of me started to think like, since this has happened today, and I know many of scandals has happened since then. It's kind of like, was he already kind of in scramble mode? Was he already feeling some kind of heat? And he was like, I need to connect with the fans. Like, this is a perfect way to connect with the fans. Quite possibly. Like, it probably was like a scramble drill, like, oh man, I need to do something. But either way, if that's what it was, he did it. And he was kind in a sense to where, especially with John and what John was going through, for him to constantly check in, to come over and, come visit John. That meant a lot to me. That meant a lot to Jimmy, right? That meant a lot to John and our family. So, hey, that's cool. However, I wanted to tackle this too before I shut up. We had a good conversation with Darian Starling. He covers the American. And I mean, great guy, great journalist. And we talked a lot, and I think we we said some of the good qualities that we're saying now about Mark. Um, we all agree that he should have been. I want to be clear with that. I think, and I you know what, I'm gonna say me, and I'm gonna let y'all speak for y'all. I agree with the decision that he should have been let go. As much as he was friendly to us, to me personally, and accepting of us, you still got to be able to separate the man from the job. And I don't think he fulfilled his duties to the job. However, I think in this day and age, it's so polarizing. Like if you say something good about somebody, it's kind of like, what's the one guy on X told me like that was y'all's guy though. I'm like, oh my God, now he's just our guy, right? And like, come on, man. It's not that we're picking a side on that's our guy. He's not our guy. No, we're just trying to be fair and honest as possible. Y'all know us. Y'all have listened to this show. I'm talking to the people that's watching. I know it's gonna have a high viewer count. Y'all know that we try to be as fair and as knowledgeable as we can. So when we give y'all some information, it's thorough. It's something substantive. That's what we aim to be substantive. Um, I think in our conversation with Darian, um, I even think then like what we were trying to convey. I do think it was kind of the comprehension. It was like it. I don't think it was received the way that we thought, right? Because the article that he wrote was like, "Oh, we gave a glowing review." I'm like, "Whoa, we didn't give a glowing review." Now, that's not, again, he didn't have an angle or an agenda. That was just, I think it was his interpretation because of some of the things that we did say. So I want to go back and I do want to clear that part up. It's like we never we encouraged everybody listen to the podcast. Like, and you be the judge if we gave a glowing review. Um, I don't believe we did. I think we were just trying to be fair and honest. I am proud of how fair and honest we have been to Mark, despite us not agreeing with his decisions and all of the scandals from softball sexual misconduct to the stabbing to him not standing by Alex Mortensen during the press conference when he had to talk about the stabbing to tripling down on Trent Dilfer at a time in the American when a lot of other coaches were being let go, and we was like, "This is the perfect time." You remember that time we was saying who's going to be the first coach to get let go? So soon as one, they're all going to do it, and then we were the only ones that were like, "We're going to keep him," like so we kept Trent. That was horrible. Um, the lack of support that I felt like for the programs, for basketball, for football, it's just the lack. When I say support, I mean like NIL type of rev share type of deal. I always felt like we fought kind of for mediocrity. We fought to be middle of the pack. If we could be somewhat middle of the pack, it was like go UAB. I don't think it doesn't feel like we actually tried to fight to be at the top of a league anywhere. Um, and I just think it's time to get a fresh, new, reinvigorated face. Um, and that can come in many forms. But I think we need someone that is used to the times that we have now, So John, what you got?
Russell was the guy that tweeted at you.
And hopefully he listens to this. Hopefully he listens to this, and then like I know he can be kind of a troll,
Mm.
Russell Brazil. I'm not really, I don't know how to say his name, but I'm a straightforward guy. Like I don't do all of the, oh that's yeah, hey man, we're grown. I'm 36 with 4 kids, dog. Like let's be respectable to each other and talk like men. But you're gonna have people that troll. He's a UAB supporter. I give him that. He's UAB. So we can disagree. I can call you out for being a troll and thinking your tweet was stupid. At the same time, I can be happy that you come to the games and that you support. That's what men do. We can get into it. We can shake hands. We can move on. Whatever. So it is what it is. Forget the trolls.
And the Kennedy, it's the interim. Eddie.
Before we talk about AK real quick, I wanted just to kind of get y'all's thoughts on like, what do you think was the final straw that led to UAB parting ways with Mark Ingram? Is there anything that we've named quite a few things that were problematic over tenure, but do you think there was like a final straw? Or, bonus answer, do you think the final straw has not revealed itself yet? And we don't know what the final straw is.
Yeah, they got the rumor going around that something happened in another athletic department. I'm like, Jesus Christ, I wonder I wonder if the Yaks thing, I don't think that was the final straw or nothing. I wonder if people just kind of like, dude, you know, like it's another thing because he's the most prominent star in
Yeah.
UAB currently right now, and for him to be like, high in the administration, it almost like you're just kind of pointing right at Mark, almost,
What did he call them, Darian? What did
butt
Yaks?
buddies. They called him butt buddies. So I think you have that and something else going on, and I think we just got over the softball stuff. We had not only did we have the horrible hire with Dilford, he tripled down on that hire and then had to fire him mid-season and had a long drawn out coaching search. I don't understand if we're going to go with our interim. Why did we have this long coaching
Yep.
search? And then you had rumors. You don't know how true, I don't know how true rumors is, but it was too much smoke attached to like him being the reason that some coaches didn't even want to come. I don't know how true that is, guys, but I was hearing it a lot. I could say it's all hearsay though. Um, but at the end of the day, you kind of like, man, that was kind of pointless if you're gonna draw it out this long, end up with the end up with the same interim coach that we could have just hired and let them get ahead in recruiting. I talked to a couple of them and they was like, it would have been nice to go ahead and take the interim tag off. We would have been way ahead. And so then you end up in another little social media hoorah because they was like, y'all don't believe in signing high school kids.
Yeah.
And then you got coaches. It was like, dude, we didn't have time to sign high school kids. We had to play catch up. And then to finally get increased funding for rev share and NIL, like to finally get more support, we spent more money on defense. I've already heard that our defense looks a lot better, and we do have more quality players there. We have more quality, like Coach Grantham. We have another quality coach. We Not only did we hire Dilfer, we hired like high school. We had a high school DC. You remember that, John? We was like,
Yep.
man, we can bring him in and we can get some experience around him, and we can work. And then we started looking at the hires. We like, dude, we don't have no experience around him. Like, what are we doing? Everything was just kind of like, these are the decisions we're making. Like, these are the decisions. And I could keep going, like everything keep popping in my head. And I'm like, I could keep going along with this. And so when you say it sounds bad. And the last thing good that you can say is kind of like years ago. And if we're talking about from an AD standpoint, you can't take how much credit can you take for having Jelly Walker and AK? Like AK was the most layup of layupish hires that you could have
Hmm.
had. And AK brought in Jelly and AK brought in Yax and Christian Coleman. He's the one that had the mosh posh of guys that we had last year. He made that work, that basketball team work. I'm sorry, but the AD ain't got nothing to do with that. If it feels as if it was in spite of the AD. Now remember that year when Peyton Manning won the Super Bowl with the Broncos? The Broncos had like this all-time defense. And I was like, y'all, they are winning in spite of Peyton Manning. Peyton Manning was throwing ducks all over the field. And and so that I kind of feel like that. It was kind of like we're winning in spite of. And you kind of go all the way back to Protective Stadium almost. And that was what, 2020, 2021? And I hate it because there's somebody that did put a lot of sweat equity into raising funds, building facilities that were sourly needed. Sourly. I remember seeing renders of facilities on my head coaches on Coach Callaway desk, like, yeah, we're gonna have these facilities. This goes, I'm talking about they did the same thing with Watson Brown. We're talking about 2005, like they had all these renders of what are we gonna do. So for whatever it's worth, Mark came in. I'm not saying Mark was just like a bulldog. He was like, I'm making it happen. I'm saying he had something to do with it. He was the AD, you know? So I just think we're so far removed from those accomplishments. And then all of the negativity, like the negative stuff is just stacking up, man. We just got to
Yeah.
make a move.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know. I kind of lean towards maybe there's more to come, in terms of negative publicity. I hope not, but you got to think if you're thinking of a calendar year and you're putting in that same calendar year the mid-season firing of Trent Dilfer, the guy you hired, and then
Triple down on.
you add to that a player. I don't mean to make light of the situation, but a player stabbing two other players on game day, and then what was it, like a 3-month investigation into sexual misconduct by a softball head coach, uh, and maybe more to come. And I'm likely forgetting stuff, right? And the coaching search, to your point, that dragged out. That was something I didn't want to like, as I was working on the article today, I was thinking about go back to 2016, I believe, when Eson was elevated, to head coach. He went from the assistant coach to interim to the head coach. And you think about even that coaching search, that was, I believe, Mark Ingram's first quote unquote like major sport hire. And you guys remember who the finalists were? Remember, UAB, this is pre-NIL. UAB basketball is coming off, really good seasons, with Coach Ass, NCAA tournament run, and really crowds were good, your conference play, you're getting maybe
Hoops,
7,000
hoops
people.
on the asphalt.
Hoops on the
Yeah.
asphalt. It was like, I mean, there was no question, the guys that, were playing for UAB at the time and, the history of UAB basketball. And it came down to Rob Eason, who's another great guy, who's doing well in his second head coach opportunity at UIC. He's got a good staff with him. But at the time, it was really early to hand the keys. And I wanted Rob Eason to be head coach. Like I advocated for it, in an era where it was like, you can keep a coach and then all the players stay because players had to sit out, for transfer portals. It's like, hey, let's keep this thing running. So I wanted Coach Eson. But anyways, the finalists were Chuck Person, I think Chuck Pearson, who was a key figure in Auburn coaching staff, but found himself in scandal, with the FBI. I think it was like a year later. And then you also
Jason
had
Terry.
Jason Terry, who was on the bench for the Houston Rockets at the time, who had no head coaching experience, no coach. And he, since then, I think has, racked up, assistant coaching jobs in the developmental league and stuff like that. But I thought that was interesting how, even that first coaching search, and you fast forward like a decade later, and it sounds a lot like this most recent coaching search in a different sport where it was like, okay, well, we went through a process. We should have had more interest for a lot of different reasons that, we believe in UAB. And this is no shade to Coach Mortensen or the current staff. Everybody that listens to this podcast knows how much we're rooting for them and how much we believe in them at this point. But that was another email that I had written to Mark Ingram really the day that he announced Coach Mortensen. You guys know, um, I talk to you guys a lot. I just was unhappy with the whole process. I'm looking around at peers and, I'm seeing X person's name, Y person's name and Z person's name, and they're a candidate, then they're not, and they're backing out. Why are they backing out? And really, you go to that first major sport hire, and then you go to the last. I'm not talking about who he hired. I'm talking about the process. And it doesn't seem like there was a lot of change, from start to finish. And that's the problem, right? UAB, we know how important, we know how UAB is a sleeping giant. People may laugh and mock at that. They're listening to this, but it's true. Like, I really believe that UAB is a sleeping giant. They've proven it in basketball, and you've seen what Bill Clark was able to do at UAB and what we think that Mortensen can do.
I I don't I hate that we skipped over that. We kind of glossed over it. It was, let's be real, the reason why Bill Clark. Like we didn't talk about that. Like
I
Bill
sent a
Clark.
photo in the group text there, and I know you're not looking at your phone right now. You might be
Oh
on
yeah,
your.
I got my phone back there charging. I
But there
didn't
was a
see it.
photo. I put this on social media, a while back, but it was Mark Ingram and Bill Clark like hugging one another with a trophy in hand, like back in like 27. This doesn't appear to have always been a problem, but it became a problem, didn't it, Darian? Like, I mean, it's no secret to our listeners. And why is that's where I think I know you haven't had a chance to look at the article yet, but I kind of insinuate this a little bit. Like, these issues started before, and yeah, you can do a good job at the facilities and things of that nature, and people can argue how much credit you give to them or not. But it's a problem when some of the most prominent figures, once you arrived, were let go, from UAB that were very successful. And we talk about softball incident. I don't know the whole history, but I don't think there were many softball incidents with Marla Townsend at the head of that softball program, right? We were in school at UAB. I think they made the NCAA tournament when I was in school. And longest tenured, softball coach. And there were other people, a lot of folks that were, there you go, there's the article right there. There was a lot of people that are no longer in UAB athletics that loved UAB, and they slowly drifted away and they were gone, right? So it's a problem that happens. And then I know you want to talk about Bill Clark, but something happened there, and it's a problem that, it just seems like some of our most successful people and the people that love UAB the most didn't vibe with Mark and didn't have the same experience that we did. And that's a problem because it's not whether Mark was friendly with Blazer Victory podcast. It's how is he doing with his staff, right?
Hmm. And you know, so you talk about these prominent figures, and I think that was the Bill Clark. We never really had a coach with the amount of success, especially in football. Bill Clark is like the Bartow of football here. Like he is a guy, he's so beloved. So not only did he just up and resign, and he said it was his back, but come on, guys, like we all know, man, Bill stuck with this team when football was down. Like football wasn't, they were just practicing against each other and building a roster. He did that for like a year and a half, 2 years before he was able to get back on the field, and he came back and won titles. Like continued success year after year, right? And for somebody like that to just walk away from it, not only did he walk away from it, he never came back. And we know how much he loved this program. He never came back, man. And it's kind of, that there's something there, and it's with Mark. There's no, I'm almost sure. If I was a betting man, I would bet that we see Bill at some point. If I was a betting man, I would bet that because we know that the issue was with Mark Ingram for whatever reason. I don't know what that. I'm not saying what who was right or who was wrong, but that I do know that perception wise, that is a very bad look, very bad look. And I'm glad y'all showed the picture and you talked about it. It hasn't always been that way. And then also I can talk about the other prominent figure, and I'm doing this by just like reading the tea leaves. How many times did we see AK flirt around? We saw AK flirt around,
Mhm.
and we know how much AK loves UAB.
Yes, no doubt.
He loves UAB. He bleeds green and gold. Like his name is gonna be his jersey is gonna be retired. He he is a Blazer man through and through. For him to year after year to seem, I remember we was kind of like, man, like K just seemed unhappy, you know, like you can just tell by some of his press conferences and when he was speaking, he just seemed frustrated, but he was being professional about it and not just ranting to the world. And then just to see him flirt around with job after job. And I think it's a thing, that he didn't take it, but it seemed like he didn't want no part of this administration. And I'm glad you brought up Marla Townsend. All of those coaches to me, the Bill Clarks, Marla Townsend is what we had. They represent stability that we had through the coaches. And for some reason, somebody like Marla Townsend didn't want to, you can tell it was something. And it all points back to Mark. So I don't know, man. It's just okay. If you listen audio only, they got the picture.
But
They got
man, it's I know that
they
probably
got
brings back some
Brian they
memories.
got
Yeah,
BB
Brian
Gibbs.
Marion
Vincent.
and high school goes over this guy.
They got the Brian
Come
Vincent.
on, man.
They got the I know Brian. I know BB is just like laughing like get the last laugh, huh?
Hmm.
Hey, he's got some AD experience last year.
Yeah.
He was AD at ULM. Yeah, but
Yeah.
I'm glad we touched on the coaching searches. I mean, that's a major, job of the athletic director. And we talked about, just the management of staff. And by the way, we've met staffers that have certainly defended, Mark Ingram over the
Yep.
years,
I'm
very
glad
much
you
so.
glad you brought it up.
And so, that's where we try to balance all of this, guys. Like we've had, I'm looking live at tweets right now, and we've got a guy that I know and that I believe listens to the show, who's basically implying here, just about the difficulty of the board of trustees. And, I talk a little bit about that in the article too. I don't think that we should, I'm not going to pretend that I think that Mark Ingram's job was easy. I'm also not going to have sympathy because at the same time, he was making a lot of money, in a job a lot of people would kill for.
But Jimmy, how much do you think his hands were tied? Like,
Good
let's balance
question.
it out. What do you think that he was facing? What's the uphill climb that anybody in that position? You made a statement earlier that just with him leaving doesn't alleviate us from the problems that still will persist unless we do something about it. What are those problems?
Yeah,
And how can the AD change that if there is a system above him that is restricting him from changing it,
yeah.
then what can we do?
I'm glad you asked the question. So let me phrase it this way: is that I think, board of trustees. I'm not going to sit here and pretend like there's any evidence that the board of trustees has recently denied UAB access into any of the goals that they want to set forward and do. When we see agendas with the board of trustees, I'm constantly reading approved. Like the next stage is approved. We're advancing. We're going to a new conference. Bill Clark had become the highest paid coach. He was making like 1.5 million in Conference USA as the head coach. And then UAB was allowed the autonomy to go out and hire someone very unconventional as head coach and go to the new conference and work with the city and everybody else to build a new stadium and raise the funds. Bartow is on the way. There's rumors of baseball improvements and new facilities for baseball. We haven't talked a lot about, the baseball team, but so I'm not going to sit here and pretend the board of trustees is stalling us. Um, At the same time, what I would say is that I believe it's true that Mark would have reported to President Watts. I don't, know who else he would report to, but the impression I received was that at least it was a challenge getting in front of President Watts about matters involving increases to funding for UAB athletics and things of that sort. So envision it this way, is it was kind of described to me that imagine Darian, your boss, whomever you report to, imagine you've got an idea that you want to increase the budget for something that you think would be impactful for your facility, for your department. And instead of being able to have an open door to go schedule a meeting or knock on your boss's door, what you got to do first is you've got to go talk to three other people, and present like a plan that would then funnel that through to your boss. And then they would talk to your boss, and then your boss would tell them, and they come back to you and maybe say, like, hey, no, that's not something we're going to do right now.
Yeah, that's
Yeah, it's not ideal, right? And so,
mm,
but is that true? I don't have evidence of that. That's how it was described to me in one way or another. And so, why somebody would want to do that for so long, I think it was a pickle. I think it was like, hey, this is a job that I want to be in. I want to be successful and all this stuff, but I don't think it was easy. And so, like I was mentioning here, I see some people that are making that same point on social media. So what has to happen? You see it from both sides though. Is like I could see it from a Bill Clark or Andy Kennedy side or whoever else you want to name in here. That would be like, hey, you need to bust through that door, and why you need to figure this out. It's your job to figure this out. Like I'm not going to feel sorry for you. Like you need to figure it out. Like I can understand that too. And we know Bill and Andy are straight shooters, right? They're not going to feel
mhm.
sorry for anyone in that position. They're going to say, hey, get it done.
Yep.
And so I think fans feel similarly about knocking down doors in the UA in the Birmingham business community. It's not going to be easy to take dollars away from other, hey, they want to go support X, Y, and Z, but it's your job to figure it out, And
And
so it's like
I'm glad
that's
you
the
brought
big.
that up. Do you think that with the retirement of Bill, and I've heard this when Bill got out of the game and everybody kind of knew why he got out of the game, it seemed from a viewpoint, from our viewpoint, it seemed as if a lot of the business community that Bill Clark was responsible for getting involved, it seemed like a lot of them withdrew support. It's from the outside viewpoint. Um, I can name out some names. We've talked about names before, but I know for a fact some of those guys was like, it ain't the same. And so if you given the head coach got a lot of the business community involved, and you go back and you look at the athletic director, I'm like, you're supposed to be one step ahead of him in this regard and getting the bid not only the business community, but I feel like his presence with the fans and on social media. I think it was Vanderbilt's AD that I was looking at, and they just love her. They,
Hmm.
the fans, it's so much interaction. It's so 2026, right? And for better or for worse, old Mrs. AD is the same way. I think sometimes he overdoes it sometimes, but he's very visible, very interactive, um, and his old Miss, his the students love him there. All that to say, Jimmy, what I was trying to say, because you brought it up real quick, and as you're bringing up these points, I'm trying to make sure I get in there real quick before we go in. But I think that says something as well, as far as like outside of the restraints of what somebody in that position may face. It's kind of like, well, these are ways you can bust down, you can bust through the doors if you can kind of outflank. I feel like we got football back because Dr. Watts at that moment, at that time, I feel like they got outflanked by fan support, business support. You had community support. You had political support. You had so much, so you finally get outflanked to it's like, we can force you to do this in a way. Um, but I feel like if Mark really truly wanted to bust down those doors, he could have been community support, fan support, just being doing whatever, and it just didn't. feel that way.
And that's the part of the thing too, is like again, as I was thinking through this today, even small things like just being engaged like on social media, like just promoting, like retweeting some stuff and just, ha- again, we joked about it earlier, like the only kind of videos where we see, Mark feeling comfortable, like the Mark that like we kind of know that we talk to is like when he's talking about facilities, and that's where his comfort zone is, right? But the absence on social media, and people have, by the way, I don't like to be on social media more than half the time. I don't want to be on, but I'm on. I'm addicted like most of us, but my impression from talking to Mark was like he didn't want to be on social media because it was kind of a wasteland. And I agree, but hell, get an intern, to do it, like get somebody to go on there and post for you or whatever. And the Darian Starling interview talked about the lack of communication, being a big factor, not just for him, but for, others as well. And so you touched on that, Darian, and then the lack of absence you touched on as well at the Alex Mortensen post-game press conference with the interim at the time, and he's dealing with that incident. There was a decision to play a game that day that some, disagreed. It was national headlines. And I think we got whooped, in the field that day. Nobody wanted to talk about the game. They wanted to talk about the incident. And it seemed like at times, when Mark was like in front of people, like he was like kind of pushing back, like it seemed like he wasn't like just, like, what I'm saying? Like just kind of like, how dare you ask that
No,
question?
when you said that, it made me think about the one thing I really disagree, and I want to talk about this. One thing I truly, truly disagree. We talk about the man in the relationship. One perspective as a man that I did not agree with him with was sometimes he would look at see how much support a fan has given to the program.
Undoubtedly he did that, yeah.
Example, it was like, oh, they don't do anything, they don't buy season tickets. I checked, they don't give, they don't do anything. So kind of like with sweat equity, I thought that was like super disconnected, super,
Mm-hmm.
super disconnected because I'm like, every voice that we can get, everybody that me, I don't have, I'm in school. I'm working a full-time job. I got $4. I can't give a dime. Like I can't give a dime. Does that mean that I don't love UAB? Dude, I bleed green and gold. You can't
Mm-hmm.
tell me that, but
Yep.
I have these things called priorities. We've gotten on this podcast plenty of time and advocated to give Southside Solution and whatever. If you can, if you can't, if you can't come to a game, we've hooked people up with tickets because your presence is what matters. And then we can build support from there. I thought he had that whole idea, and I know this is the free show, but I thought he had that whole idea ass backwards. Like
Mm-hmm.
it was very frustrating to hear that. That's if I'm glad you said that's what I had that on the front of my brain to talk about. But yeah, that's something I passionately. I remember he brought that up. We sitting there. I just sat there like, I'm not gonna say anything to disrespect this man, but I'm just like, yeah, like, and he would like to go as far as like looking at people's history to see if they kind of supported the program, John. That really disappointed me. But as Jimmy was speaking, as we run down this list of things, it was that pushback. It's like he was fighting against the fans so much, and he was getting so upset. And he talked about the wasteland that he felt social media was, but half of the reason, at least for UAB, half of the reason that felt like a wasteland because you did not take part of it. All people wanted was some kind of transparency and communication. It's UAB. We got some of our fans are whiny, but for the most part, dude, we done been through the mud and back.
Mm-hmm.
We can take it if you feel like you're on our team. Dude, when we was losing, when I was playing and we had small crowds, I still remember seeing them same people. We played one miserable game against Marshall in like it was horrible conditions. I remember seeing the same people, UAB fans, cheering loud, and that meant the world to me. So if social media is going to be a wasteland, you gotta you don't think it's a wasteland when we out there getting whooped? If we try to tweet through it and we still try to support our guys and make sure our coaches feel supported, and make sure our parents still feel love. These parents of these players, they like, dang, it's like it ain't nothing but negativity. Man, you go out there and you join it and you be the not only join but be the leader of the and communicate and be transparent. And I just think that as we talk about it, we can kind of get. I like doing this. Like we can kind of get to the details of what we mean. We're not being vague with what we say, and hopefully people are like listening through, like as we flesh out the ideas as well.
Yeah. What about you talked about transparency and stuff? One of the things I thought about today too was that, how much confusion there was as it relates to something as simple as Southside Solution versus Magic City Impact. I think back to contributing to Magic City Impact myself, and Steve Irvine and Tim Stevens were releasing these, detailed articles, like they were really good stuff. And all of a sudden the content stopped, and the contributions weren't. It's not like I got my money back or they stopped taking the money. Like it was just okay. Well, here's what it is. And then you had Southside Solution. We had the man AK on our show, and y'all correct me if I'm wrong. I didn't re-listen to the episode today, but of course he talked about Southside Solution, which I know was more basketball centric. It was not affiliated with the university, and I almost feel like we kind of asked Andy about Majesty Impact, and he was kind of like he didn't really know any. Like he acted like he kind of didn't really know much about it. I don't know if you guys. I could be making that up, so somebody can correct me if I'm wrong. But it was kind of like, wait a second, like this is university sponsored. Like we're talking about AK basketball. We got these players. Like what? Where's the disconnect here? And now we've moved forward with other avenues or whatever from a university standpoint. But the whole. I think it was like some athletic directors, some university administrators, some coaches, some everybody, were kind of slow to adapt to player compensation. I think some, I'm not saying Mark was this way, but I think some kind of thought this was something where they were going to get saved by legislation. Like we're going to get, something's going to pass, we're going to get guardrails, and like let's just keep advocating for that. Like let's just we'll kind of do this, a little bit of that, kind of waiting for a life raft. And then that life raft didn't happen. We're still talking about guys playing in their seventh year, and people, what a temporary restraint, whatever, or whatever they are, like legal challenges that are happening right now. Or we're gonna have another player on the roster get out at the last minute. Like it's just it's gonna keep happening. So, anyways, I feel like some were slow to adapt, and I do think that Mark was slow to adapt. Just listening to various interviews and things of that sort, it's kind of the way he talked about it. Now we're moving along a little bit, but it's late. Like it's late us getting there, and so I think we're past a little bit by that. But I think there was just too much confusion about the NIL. I know it was confusing for everybody, but just something simple like more getting out in a few videos. Here's what we're trying to do. Y'all remember when I was sharing some videos? It was like Oregon State's AD or something. I forgot. It was like random Charlotte's AD. It was like these random things where people were just being way more transparent about here's kind of where we are and here's where we're trying to get to. We used to talk about like how nice would that be, just to have some type of goal. I know you don't want to share
I,
everything.
I saw when UTSA, and I don't think they're particularly fond of their AD. I don't think so right now. But I saw when they was releasing articles saying, "Hey, we want to build up this amount of money. Like, let's take a vote. We're going to push this to our students." Well, I think that was UTSA or North Texas. I can't remember which one. But they was talking about how much money they were looking to have for the athletics, especially for NIL, and how much money it would take, from the students. And they were looking all of that to say they were looking for creative ways, different ways to try to raise and bring in this money. And I was like, I'm not aware, and people, I could be ignorant. I mean, like we got jobs, and we're not all knowing. Some help us share with us creative in different ways that we felt like fundraising was taking place. Obviously, he was somewhat of a talented fundraiser for facilities. He was, right? But however, in this UAB world, I mean, not in the UAB world, in this NCAA world that we live in now, how was he doing it for player compensation and roster retainment? That's the name of the game. Now, what it was, Jimmy spoke on the confusion. You remember at one point with the Magic City Impact, how we stopped receiving it was just like communication stopped
Yep.
altogether. And it was kind of like people were like,
Hmm.
do we need to give? Or then they stopped responding to people on social media. It was like, what's going on? And everybody slowly, I don't even think nothing ever came out about that. Like, no, I don't give to them no more. It just kind of people just kind of slowly poured their money. There's one, I bet there's still one Blazer fan out there that's like giving like 6.99 a month to Magic City Impact right now. But anyway,
I just sent y'all something in the group chat. It might be worth kind of pulling up at some point, John, but it's like a little graphic from an account that's talking about the various hires under Mark Ingram at UAB. So that might be a graphic that we can share here or retweet from at Blazer Pod later. Um, did you see that one, John?
Yeah, but I can't pull it up.
Oh, okay. No worries. There was another thought I had, and I'm just like losing. I'm having brain fog now. Uh, is there anything else that we want to kind of look back at before we kind of look forward? I think that a good thing for us to maybe end the episode today is as we look forward, what are we wanting to see from this search? What is an outcome that we're hoping for? What's some criteria? I know that John shared, that post from today at Blazer Pod asking some folks. Anything before we look forward, Darian, that you want to talk about as we look back?
it's are we talking about like if what I would want in an AD? I'm glad we did this, and I can try to kind of summarize it up real quick with what I would want.
Yeah, before we do that, is there anything like
Oh,
looking back, like how did we get here? Like anything you want to say about Mark and his tenure at UAB? What went well, what didn't? Anything to kind of close the Mark Ingram chapter and kind of look forward?
I do I do enjoy the fact that we stepped back and took a macro view of it, and we looked at it as a whole, right? And that's what we want to do. It's been what 11 years or so since
Yep.
Mark, you know, that's a long run. He had highs, y'all. Like, let's not act like the dude was a scrub and that he was totally undeserving. No, when everything was good, everybody was happy. When everything was good, I don't want to play this game of he's always sucked, he sucks. Like, I don't want to do that. That's disingenuous. And that's riding the wave, right? Like when everything was good, everybody was happy. We were on top of the world. We were next to blow. We had beat BYU. We was doing our thing in basketball. Like we we thought we were on the up and up. And if during now think about it, during those times, if Mark would have left during those times, we'd have been, oh man, like, dang, we had all this success. Well, this guy was the people would have been, the people can say what they want to, but they would have been hurt. It's easy to look back now and say, no, it wasn't. We all say, yeah, okay, sure. The guy had good moments here. He did good things here. I do think it's important. I'm glad that we taking our time with this episode to talk about it this way. I think it's important to give this man his respect and to thank him for the things that he did do in a positive way, and also acknowledge the fact I think it was just kind of past his time. Like his vision of how he felt like his plans and his vision and how he wanted to execute them, how he wanted to execute his plan and his vision. I just don't. I think it was for the last iteration of college football, and not this one. This one is different, and you need uh young, invigorated, fresh minds to be able to tackle the problems of today, not yesteryear. And I think that's where we ended up at.
Yeah, I think that's a good note. The last kind of comment I wanted to make was just about the Directors Cup standings is essentially I shared in the group chat from Die Hard Sports Network, Tim Stevens. He had done an article looking here June 26th of 2026. He'd explained that the Directors Cup Awards points based on NCAA postseason finishes across 19 sports. And ultimately he had shown some of the in-state teams, and UAB was listed as unranked in 2025, 2026, and unranked the year prior. In the 3 years prior to that, finished 262nd, 243, 196. And so basically, the Directors Cup is looking across all the sports at the university and their success, and it's an indicator that UAB just wasn't doing well across the board. And then now John has also a mirage of wins. On X, John sharing a photo of just an AD review and looking at the various coaching hires that Mark Ingram was responsible for. And one thing you'll notice is Andy Kennedy with a 70% winning percentage, is great. But you look at some of the other hires, there's only, I'm looking across the board here, win percentage. Bryant Vincent had the one interim year.
When you look
But
at
you
how many times softball is on there, that's kind of alarming in itself, right?
Yeah, after Marla was in a new position, no longer with the university or whatever, UAB's had several coaches. One of our listeners, Matthews, pointed this out. No one stayed longer than 2 years, in that sport. So you look across that high turnover in softball, and there's other Olympic sports, too, that have experienced, they don't get the same publicity, that the major sports are going to get, right? But just a lot of turnover there. So I think as you look at Mark Ingram, Bill Clark wasn't his hire, but was highly successful. Andy Kennedy, you referenced it earlier, layup. You can't give him no credit, but you also can't sit here and say he really had to go compete and win, Andy Kennedy. And why is Andy Kennedy still here? In my opinion, is because of what you referenced earlier, Darren, how much Andy loves UAB. Absent that, I think he would have taken one of the other jobs that he was offered or other schools that pursued him by this point. I think it's evident by Andy Kennedy taking the interim AD role how much he loves UAB and how he wants to help steward this transition, whether it's himself or any other person to take over that position. So kudos to him for taking on double duty. Now, and we can talk later as we approach basketball season what that impact might be, as it relates to responsibilities. But as we close the Mark Ingram chapter, we've talked it to death at this point. It is time to proceed to what's next, and we'll quickly touch on that, John. I don't know if you can bring up your I'm trying to get the screen pulled back up. I don't know if you can bring up your tweet and some of the responses that we got on social media to your question about what folks are looking for. If you can't, that's okay because I can go find it. But
It's a lot.
yeah, John on at BlazerPod had asked a question earlier. He said, "What qualities would you like to see as UAB's next athletic director?" And we got a lot of immediate responses, and I think that kind of looking at a few of those will kind of help tell the story. Is that something, John, you think you're gonna be able to get or no?
And
Yeah.
why John pulling it up real quick, I'm glad you brought up Tim Stevens with Die Hard Sports, .net. Shout out to my guy Tim. That was a very informative, and I love being informed. Thank you for sharing that G6 Cup. What's the name of it? What's the name of the cup?
Director's Cup.
Director's Cup. Like
Yeah.
that's a great way to kind of um put some stats to everything, like some in a way that you don't think of. So shout out to my guy Tim Stevens, y'all. Check him out, subscribe.
I'm gonna see. So I'm just gonna kind of read for audio listeners some of the responses that we got to try to, paint a picture. Actually, before I do that, Darren, why don't Darian, what are your things like? What are you kind of criteria that you're looking for as it relates to this AD search process and ultimately what you'd be looking for if you were involved with it?
So it was one that I liked, and I think that came from my guy Andrew Vines on Twitter when I was looking at it. I don't half the time I don't like saying X for whatever reason. I'm
I
just like,
get it. I get it.
you say you got it.
Oh. Mm-hmm.
Okay,
Audio
there we
people,
go.
probably audio only people was like, damn, did they go out?
We're still here.
And we still here. Can you scroll down? My
Okay.
guy Andrew Vines is on there somewhere. To do right there.
Yeah.
He said, need someone that fully embraces the modern era of rev sharing and has creative ideas about fundraising for it. It is focused on growth instead of expense management. Is visible in the community, willing to spend on marketing, more aggressive with scheduling, and pushes for greatness. I was like, he
Mm-hmm.
has some bars in there, right? But even
Mm-hmm.
how he just started it off and said, you know, he needed someone to fully embrace the modern era of rev sharing. I think that speaks to what I was talking about. It's like just having somebody fresh, new, that is already with the times, right? And they have a new vision on how they want to lead this thing, and where they want expenses to be directed, where they think funds would be more useful in placing those funds. And man, he just killed it. Just the focus on the growth and the thing about was the expense management to me was a major one too. It's like I think he said something about being aggressive about growing, and this instead of focusing on expense, like just trying to manage, like we want to push for greatness. Instead, stop trying to. I felt like we was just like, let's shepherd what we have, not let's take chances. Let's have new ideas. Let's grow and let's break the mold. I think with like what Jimmy said, since because of the location that we are in, this big football market that we're in, and this recruiting radius that we're also in, if we direct the funds and have the right type of vision coming from the top down, and if that person can explain their vision really well, I think that it can break through to upper management, whatever you want to call them, to the higher ups, whoever that may be. It can be the board of trustees, whatever. And I think he can filter down, but I think you have to really believe in it. And one thing I know about Mark didn't like this rev share NIL era we were in. Like no coach really liked it, but I don't think he ever embraced it. So shout out to Andrew. That's kind of like sums it up for me.
John, I just sent you a DM on
Okay.
X with a graphic. Can you see if you can look at that quick?
Okay.
So basically, for those that are tuned in, I took the responses that we received and threw it into an AI and said, "Hey, summarize this for me." And I think it did a good job of a visual representation of what we're hearing from the fans in terms of what they're looking for. And so, if John's able to pull that up, we can talk through it here real quick. And if not, I can talk through it absent that.
This is pretty cool. We got our own AD chart
That's
of
right.
what we want.
I get it.
Okay, so for our visual people, you can see it here. So I just, yeah, you might be able to zoom in, but ultimately, it was summarizing some of the categories that we're hearing from
Oh,
folks in our responses, and it starts with fundraiser and revenue generator. We've touched on that, right? Number one priority. Number two, someone that's visible, relatable communicator. We've talked about that on this episode as well, have we not? Number three, aggressive advocate for UAB. That's something that we've hinted at too. You've got to bust down doors, right? You've got to, the narrative out there in the public is kind of that UAB athletics isn't serious. So that's what you're dealing with, and you've got to go out there and change the narrative, right? You've got to, bust down those doors. Number four, marketing, attendance, and brand builder. We didn't touch on marketing a lot today, but marketing has been an issue and a criticism with releases of hats with logos that are floating off the hat, when you're looking to buy that from the shop, to confusion about branding with new UAB logo and the old Dragon logo, right? And what's happening with that. Attendance has been an issue, scheduling, not getting a quality non-conference schedule in basketball to boost a resume, based, no evidence behind this, but rumors of just restrictions around budgeting and travel and things of that, that would enable UAB to go play big opponents on the road. Back in football, not getting one real notable opponent in Protective Stadium after all this time. A stadium that's well big enough for opposing fan bases to travel and in a Birmingham area that you think that other teams would programs want to travel into to recruit out of. A stadium that hosts a bowl game, annually, like not to have one real notable opponent at, Protective is a problem. And then number five, modern forward thinking leader. So there's a quote here, a closing pitcher type who seals the deal on the real, candidates, So anyway, it says the bottom line, fans want a modern, aggressive CEO type AD who can raise money, sell UAB, connect with everyone from major donors to everyday fans. Darren, you hit on that, right? You don't have to be the
Hmm.
biggest booster. Your Blazer priority points don't have to be in the top, 50. We got everyday fans. Um, and fight to keep the Blazers from falling behind in a rapidly changing college athletics landscape. I don't know if I could have said it better myself. So appreciate all the responses from you guys. Anything that stands out to you, John or Darian, or would y'all agree kind of with that five criteria?
Yep.
Yeah, I definitely do. I I was thinking, I was like, man, I would want somebody kind of like how Alex Morton said. With Alex Mortensen, I heard the main thing that I heard, and this is from very trusted, reliable people within the program, right? So this is like direct sources. The main thing I heard about the difference uh, between him and Trent, and of course, you have the things that we don't see. Doesn't it feel good to not have to defend a coach for something that he said? Like
Mhm.
we don't for the first time we don't have to deal with that. I was like, look at our coach just being boring, having coach speak and really meaning that boring
Yes.
coach. He's a guy that just love football, right? He just love
Mhm.
football, eat, breathe football. Just a great guy that love football. That's it. That's all you got. Not all of this egotistical BS talk or whatever. Like their
Mhm.
schedule, us versus us. For Lipscomb, I'm like, what is
Oh my gosh.
But the main difference, all of that, it was a little side rant. The main difference that I heard about Alex is Alex just looks for solutions. He understands limitations and he thinks about creative ways like, okay, what can we do in spite of this? How can we get around this? What are the steps for us to conquer this limitation, right? And one thing I heard about Trent was he complained a lot about why he couldn't. Like, I can't do this. We don't have enough money with this. We don't have enough nutrition. We don't have, it was always we can't do it because of the resources that's given to us. There's no way we can do it. And it was just over with and it's just complaining, right? He still stayed. I'm not saying that he didn't try his hardest. One thing I can say about Trent, I think Trent gave his 100% effort. Like, that's the type of guy. That's how he's wired. Did I think he complained about it and it permeated throughout not his staff, not only his staff, but through the players in that whole building? It reverberated. Yes. How do I know that? Because I've been and I've asked. Like, and it was like I had a DM from a player that I didn't know that was in my, it's because I rarely check my IG DMs, but it was like from 2024. And the dude was telling me, like, man, they need to hire Alex Mortensen and they need to get Trent out of here. That was a player that was on the team. And he was telling me why. And you hear from former staff, current staff, you hear from certain people, and it's kind of like the dude made excuses, but Alex does not. And as far as an AD, that's what I want. I don't want. I heard some excuses from Mark. I ain't gonna say I heard a lot, but I heard the reasons why we can't do stuff. We can't because we can't. Well, let's make a way, man. Like, you're the AD. Get it done. Let's stop hearing why we can't and let's make reasons why we can. That's how we got football back in the first place. It was like, we're gonna do this, we're gonna do that, we're gonna get it back. That's all I want to see. I want to see I want to see an AD that's gonna lead the charge and getting this stuff. getting this stuff. That's our friends at Alamo Audible. Great
Mhm.
read. Helpful
We
for
got people
UAB
tuning
students.
in. I know we went long with this episode, but and we didn't. We bounced around a little bit, but this is what you get, and this is our raw thoughts. Like we don't have an
We did
agenda.
it on the free show.
Yeah, we
Yes.
did on the free show. We told, our story and everything like that. And so I don't know if you guys have anything else that you want to talk about today, but I think we did a good job kind of painting how we got here, our experience, accomplishments versus, failures for a lack of better terms, and then, looking at the future here very early on this AD search, like what we're hoping criteria wise, trait wise to see. But is there anything that stands out, John or Darian, that we want to hit on before we dip? All good.
No.
Well, hell, we got a football game in what, 15 days.
Yes.
We got a game. So y'all, we appreciate y'all's support. Give us a comment, on the episode. I don't know if you can comment on the Alamo Audible just did. So read the article if you would, that you can find at BlazerPod or at UAB Athletics Fan on X. Consider joining the Patreon as we get closer to the season. Like and subscribe to this video, comment on here. I don't even have a question for you. Just tell us what you think
Oh, Jimmy, did you have any thoughts on like some of the press releases, like some of the wording and what was said about when Mark? Did we touch on that already?
about part ways,
Yeah,
like
and
kind of
some
like
of the
that language.
reasons, and some of the reasons that they parted, some of the reasons that they parted ways, and what are they looking to do in the future?
Yeah, I don't know. I think we kind of did like in a roundabout way. But I find all the, corporate jargon like interesting. Like at the end of the day, it's just corporate, you know, talk. At the end of the day, I think we can read through the, between the lines and understand kind of what the situation is, while still being respectful. I think that if somebody, was, I've been in corporate America long enough, if somebody's leaving for a better opportunity and you're on good, you know, if you're on, a good track or whatever, like you're throwing like a party in the break room, and everybody's getting a chance to say goodbye. It's not a
Right.
meeting and then there's a box and secure. I'm not saying that happened, but it's not like a scene where it's like, okay, well, now the email and the computer access is shut off and you're nowhere to be found. So
Yeah, trying to get it, you trying to badge into the building. It's like,
yeah, what the heck?
like what's going on here?
Yeah.
Like, yeah, I was just wondering. I know, Jimmy is an HR guy. I was just wondering, with all of that, the jargon, I found it somewhat interesting, and yeah.
I think it's a classy professional way just to kind of, give the impression that it was a mutual, agreement. That's where most people try to land. Like if you'd rather say it was a mutual parting of ways, a mutual agreement. I don't know, to be clear. But in general, I think you'd rather that be the case. Some people are just like, no, fire me, but usually I don't know if John said this on air, but usually there's some type of paperwork that's going to be signed, an NDA, and then, we have Trent who lost his job, right, and we're still paying him for like another year plus. Sometimes these folks are losing their jobs, but they're getting paid to not work for quite some
Mhm.
time, so that might be a
Mhm.
part of it as well. Don't they know enough, and they're getting paid not to say anything, and that's just how corporate America, that's the ugly part of it.
Yeah, yeah. I was just wanted to have your thoughts on that. It's kind of like if you're married and then y'all decide to publicly come out with a mutual statement while y'all getting a divorce.
Yeah.
But then as you release your own statement, it's like I just look forward to building a relationship that is where everybody is faithful. And all of a sudden you kind of start looking into it like, like
Y'all just
like
know if John and Darian put a release, on social media about thanking Jimmy Marion for his contributions to the Blazer Victory podcast for all these years, and we really like the guy and all this stuff, and I'm like, oh, I really y'all just know they fired me. They removed me from the podcast. Y'all know what the deal is.
Yeah. But man, this is a
Uh,
fun one. We've been going about what, an hour and a half or so?
Oh, it's been long. Yeah, we've put in the work. So y'all show us some love. Y'all put a comment in the comment section. Let us know what you agree with, what you disagree with. But we're gonna I don't know much about AD searches, but for anybody in administration to listen to this, if you want to hit me up and keep me informed, I'd be happy, to let the UAB.
I'm a reference, John. We can be references for our boy Jimmy. I think Jimmy has the energy and the passion to
Oh, I
lead
love it.
UAB athletics to a brighter future,
Put me on the
right?
committee. I will interview people. I will do some research. I will work for free. I'll work nights and weekends. I'm all about it. So y'all listening to this show from an administration standpoint, I'd love to be involved.
Can you
But
imagine? Can you imagine like Jimmy at like 11:47 at night texting Ray Watts like, "Hey Ray, check this out.
yeah, my bad, bro. We're,
Look what
we're
I just
hiring. We're hiring this person right now. No,
look what I just found out right here about this guy, Ray. You probably would have taken a look at this one. I
yeah,
think
and
boy,
drop an extra 5 mil, to revenue share while we're at it too. That is
yeah.
something that'd be interesting, guys. Is that what I know about changes like we had? There was an increase in revenue share, and why that happened was because there was a change in leadership at the head coaching position, and oftentimes, what you're going to experience
Look at this
is
family man. Look
Oh,
yeah.
at him. The
Oh,
announcement. Look at
yeah,
there.
John just put up on the screen the exciting news that the Marion household is expecting baby number three. So Natalie posted online. We got some photos with our oldest Hatton and our youngest Hampton holding up a sign on
Look
our
at
recent Gulf Shores trip. So
this guy
uh,
is fruitful.
yeah, for those
He's
for
productive.
for those of you that love March Madness like I do, you'll be excited to know that the due date is March 20th. So there's nothing going on, conference tournament and March Madness, so I might be absent, for some bracketology, hopefully conversations. But yeah, we're expecting baby number three.
Baby number three, this guy puts in the work.
What's
The
that? What's that?
seed,
We
the
we got
fruit.
four, two, three. Somebody do some math for me. We got four, two. Was that nine kids amongst the three of us?
Man, listen,
Did I do the
that's a
math
lot of
right?
kids,
Yeah,
man.
nine. Darion's in
Yeah,
the
you
lead. I don't know
did.
if I can get
Yeah,
to
four
four.
plus three, seven. All right, the way you going, man, you're gonna be there in no time.
Me and Darian got that gray hair where we have seven combined children. I mean, it's coming out every day.
It's coming
Uh,
out every.
but just that last mark is I'll be curious when you have a change. You saw it with the football. Like these candidates are negotiating, right? They're coming in and saying, "Hey, we need to. If you want me, at that point, like I need X, Y, and Z." I'd be curious. It's going to be very telling who they hire. Is it a traditional hire or is it someone that's more of of that criteria that we're looking for? And if they find that person, are they able to negotiate at that point in time? Hey, if I'm coming in, this is the commitment from the university, and not just what you say you're going to do, but put paper on what that extra institutional support is. That's going to be something to follow.
My last question for y'all.
Hmm.
Do we see Bill Clark make a return in some way to UAB football? Is that in appearances or
Mm,
as a part of the program somehow, some way?
I'm gonna say yes. I'm gonna say yes. I'd be curious. I think Bill Clark has a radio show. I'd love to hear what his commentary is on the subject. And I'd love to know what his kind of support will be moving forward. I think what you're gonna see, I had you know, well, I won't say this part, but I had someone that we've talked about today, interact with me a little bit on social media last night, a big loyal, UAB advocate. And so I think you're going to start to see hopefully some of those folks that were left behind or aren't haven't been as involved, whether it's boosters, Birmingham supporters, former coaches, whatever it is. I think they're going to start hopefully coming back around, but and maybe even in there's Bill Clark being considered, for AD. Wouldn't that be a hell of a thing? So
mhm.
this is a pivotal
Hmm.
moment in UAB athletics history. It's so pivotal. Like anybody, for me to sit here and be like, "Hey, I know what's going to happen. I don't," and for me to try to undersell the importance of this would be not right. I mean, this is so important. We could turn around. You think you got a bad person in the seat. You could turn around and get someone worse. That's a reality. It could be worse. Is it going to be worse? Probably not. But it could
It
be
could
worse.
be.
It could
Yeah.
be. And then
Mhm.
you could have an a-hole and someone that isn't doing a good
So,
job.
so with that being said, y'all really think they'll just leave that in the hands of a research, like a firm, a committee to find and or will it need, I feel as if it needs to be some input on who this next, you need some Blazer people sitting at that table.
Got to. You
And it
got
has to
to.
be like a committee, not just like Dr. Watson in the trustees. I do think that they do need to lean on some people, just like they did for the, I mean, they somewhat did to get to the coaching search for the head football coaching search. Again, we still ended up back at Mort, but I don't think it was because of, and I'm glad, first of all, I'm glad I love Mort. I'm glad
Yeah.
that
Yeah.
we have
Yeah.
Mort.
We have to
I,
preface that, but hopefully our listeners understand that. Like
I
we're
think
not,
we I
you
think
know,
we got a great one. Like I think
yeah.
we tripped our way into and stumbled our way into somebody that we didn't actually deserve at the moment, honestly. But all that being said is, and the only reason I think we didn't have another football coach because our inability, and I think this is because it could be because of the AD, because our inability to close. We brought guys to the table, we didn't close the deal. Um, but with that being said, I'm glad that we ended up with the guy we got. But hopefully there's some Blazers, some prominent figures that can have some smart ones. I do think we I do think we have some prominent figures that's like, eh, do we really need your opinion on on this matter? You're a great one, but we need to filter out some of those guys. I wish there's a way we can get Jimmy Marion up there. I really do.
Yes.
If some kind of like Jimmy's great. Like if I'm
Hmm.
advocating for that right now. But man,
Yes.
how can we make that happen, John? Like
Hey,
how can we get Jimmy to be like a part of the represent
I've got 3 years of experience as a Blazer Booster.
fans, make
I'm
that
a
Let's
happen.
UAB.
go.
I'm a
Let's
UAB
go.
graduate. I set the record for the most number of cold calls in a day. I made like 105 cold calls in a day.
Listen, the
However many
dude
hours
is a
that was.
freaking
I
machine,
I
analytical
I will
machine,
sell
man.
UAB. I've been going to basketball games for over 20 years, season ticket holder. I can do it all. I've been on this damn podcast. Shout out to
Hmm.
Dave West. Was on the Daily Dragon, with my guy Dave West back in the day. Multiple iterations of Blazer podcasts and everything. Like I'm an advocate for UAB. Hey, if y'all want to nominate me, sign me up.
Yes.
Yes, I know. If y'all done stayed for almost an hour and 45 minutes through, and I know fans will love this. We really fleshed this out. I'm glad we got to this point. It all culminates here. AD importing everything, but the real key is to get Jimmy Marion on the board or the
Let's go.
committee
Let's go.
for our voice to be heard. That's what we need. I think we'll
Yeah.
end up with the best guy possible.
Hey, well, you just
And
send some
I'll be
emails.
honest.
Send some emails to interim athletic director Andy Kennedy, and we'll see what we can get going.
Yeah. That was fun. This was fun, guys.
All right. Well, we appreciate all of y'all's support again. We've got families to go get to and fun to hopefully have. Let us know what you think in the comments section. We're 15 days at the recording of this episode from UAB
Beat
kicking off
Illinois.
against
Woo,
Illinois,
woo, woo.
trying to shock the world. So be on the lookout for more content on the Patreon and the free show. Y'all have a great week. And as always, go Blazers.